important. And I'm going to ask you to have a go at this, a bit of participation. So there are 4 very brief descriptions of 4 interventions. I know there's not enough information there for you to judge, but I'm going to ask you to anyway. I'd just like you to put them in order. Which one of those do you think is likely to be the most effective, the biggest effect? And I know there are different outcomes as well, some are reading, writing, maths, or whatever. Which one is the least effective, and what about the order of the other two? I'm just going to give you a couple of minutes to think about that. And then I want you to have a look at what your neighbour's got. And the question is, did you agree?
So, is there an adult involved in B? Or is that just a group of children?
Yes, there is, after school. I can't remember what kind of adult. I think there are teachers doing after school. It's 1 hour a week after school.
So like a book club?
Yeah, book club. Yeah. Any other questions about the details? Don't cheat. Does anybody recognise any of these? Yes. Okay. If you do, keep that to yourself, please.
How long did they last for?
Sorry?
How long did they last for?
That's a good question. About half a term, I think. I don't know. Does anybody know? Let's say half a term. Okay, I'm going to have to press you for an answer and just to quickly share with your neighbour. Right, okay. Sorry, say that again. D is the biggest. Okay. So, and did your neighbour agree with that?
We were, generally, we had a couple of options.
You didn't agree, did you?
We were told.
Okay.
It depends on the teachers, though, doesn't it?
Does it?
How many, was this just one group of 6, 7 teachers?
No. So all of these 4 are projects that have been evaluated by the Education Endowment Foundation. They're on the website with the descriptions there, and they have an effect size linked with them for that specific evaluation. So, and they also relate to things that are in the toolkit. So if you spot the links there, you should be able to see, okay, so somebody said metacognitive up the top there. That is, you're right, the kind of active ingredient of D there, helping to plan, monitor and evaluate. That's metacognitive, self-regulation. And you're right also that D was the most effective. That was a 0.7 something effect size. Well done, yeah. I wasn't really interested so much in your answers. We probably haven't really got time to do this. What I'd hoped was that the discussion, that you wouldn't agree first of all with your neighbour, or you wouldn't agree perfectly, but the fact of having to think about that and discuss it with another teacher would be something that would help you to be a better teacher. Obviously in 30 seconds, that's hoping for quite a lot. But maybe, if that's not the case, then maybe we're barking up the wrong tree, are we? I don't know. But if that might be the case, then I'll keep this hope alive, that knowledge about research, because I think if you do understand the principles behind the research, it's not just kind of memorising that information, but it's understanding, first of all, recognising that that's metacognition, and what's important about each one. So I think the answer is that A and C were roughly sort of 0.2's effect size. They're sort of modest size. The B, the encourage reading for pleasure, had no effect at all on the reading outcome, and D was quite effective. And I think the B is the one where the most interesting discussion would arise, because a lot of teachers think that the problem with learning is motivation. If you can just get the kids interested and engaged, well, they'll start learning. And actually, I think what the evidence suggests is it's the other way around. If you can get them learning, they'll start to get engaged. And getting them motivated and enthusiastic and aspiring higher might have some very short-term benefits, but probably has some quite long-term damaging effects, because what you're teaching them is to make a lot of effort and get really excited about something and then fail again. So it's actually opposite to a lot of what people think, and that's why I think it's important and interesting. But you might not agree with me about that. Here's another thing I think that maybe teachers need to know about, and if you are a teacher, you probably won't ever have been taught about these things as part of your initial teacher training. Maybe are you involved in the yeah, well, you'll teach your students this. I certainly know we don't teach our students any of this in Durham. And we're an outstanding practice, by the way. Do teachers need to know this? You know, there's a lot of stuff on Twitter about knowledge versus understand. It's not, you need both. Yeah, we know that. Okay, well, you're ahead of the game. Yeah. Okay, so that's about the, how do you know whether you're good or not? Let's suppose we could agree about what that means. How would you get better? And I think this is actually really simple. I'm going to do 10 more minutes. The bottom line here is that teachers learn the same way that other people do. It's that simple. And the odd thing about this is that as teachers, you're quite good at helping other people to learn. Or at least that's what you do. Whether you're good at it, I don't know. So it's the same. That's the important thing, that we need to be clear what it is we need teachers to be able to do better in order to help them to do that. And if we're not clear about that, then we're in trouble. So if you look at something like, this is just taken from Dylan Williams' formative assessment strategies, and he talks there about clarifying, sharing and understanding the learning intentions. In other words, what counts as success? Do you know that? And if you don't know that, what can you expect to learn? And when you think about CPD you've done, how clear is that, and how appropriate is it? And then don't be surprised why the evidence shows that teachers do improve their performance for about the first 3 years, maybe 3 to 5 years, and then after that tend not to. They plateau. And you think, you know, somebody who's got 20 years experience, on average, isn't better than somebody who's got 5 years experience. How can that be? Okay, I'm just going to skip over that because I think we know that. Yeah, so in terms of, this is the stuff we know. I say, you know, you're experts in helping people to learn, other people to learn. This is the kind of thing you do when you want to teach hard stuff, hard ideas. You do some of this thing. When you want teachers to learn hard ideas, you tend to just, somebody tells you what it is. You know, here's what formative assessment looks like, and give you some examples. And you need to do all this other stuff. You need to see it demonstrated. You need to have a go at doing it. You need to have a go at doing little bits of it. You know, when you learn to factorise quadratics, you don't just give the whole thing. You start with noddy examples that fall out nicely, and you work up to the tough ones. It's the same. What do we know about CPD? Well, if you were in David's talk across the way, you'd be hearing all this in more detail, and this is what he'd be saying. David Weston. Shame he chose to miss that, because I'm sure that would have been a great talk. Maybe he'll put slides in there on the web too, I don't know. But, you know, this is out of line with, well, you tell me otherwise. Is this what you do in your school?
Yes.
Yeah.
You do? Fantastic.
And we're proud to see
Yes? Smug is the word I'm using.
It's Saturday, we're here voluntarily, we can be smug.
Yeah. It's not common though, is it? And therefore, on the best evidence available, and let's not pretend that that's great either, pretty much all the CPD we do, and thankfully we don't do much of it, it's actually pitiful the amount that most teachers do, but it's almost all of it a waste of time, I think, in terms of what you actually learn. Or what makes a difference? You might learn stuff. Does it make a difference to learners in your school? Because that, you know, it's not the happy sheet at the end. Yeah, I had a great time, thank you, and the lunch was good. It's about whether 6 months later you're doing something different in your classroom, and if you are doing something different, is it actually beneficial? And the first of those, I think almost all CPD falls at the first hurdle there, and even the ones that get through that first, are you doing something different 6 months later? The second is a killer. You know, are students better off as a result? It'd be nice to see some evidence. Okay, so this is a bit people might disagree about. I don't know if you haven't already. Perhaps you have. How many have we got? 5, 10. I think there's a case. We were talking about accountability, and that's always going to be really controversial, isn't it? The evidence about that is pretty mixed too. Some positive evidence, though. It isn't all that accountability is bad. It really does depend how you do it, I think, and that's where the knowledge, where the research evidence pretty much evaporates. You know, we don't really know. There's lots of really strong opinions about the kind of accountability people like, and projecting, okay, therefore it must be good for students because I like that. That's not necessarily the same thing. I don't think the evidence can guide us a lot, but there is evidence about the impact of giving people feedback, for example. Target setting, again, a lot of evidence to support when people have specific challenging goals to work towards, they do better. Some evidence, as I say, about accountability. We know that teachers matter most. I've already said most teachers typically stop improving. And the problem is, so I think all that builds up to a case for wanting to monitor the quality of teaching. Quality of teaching is probably less controversial than the quality of teachers. So that's one where we might argue about a distinction, I guess. The problem is it's really hard to do, actually. And what kinds of things might we look for? Well, we might look at assessments, and that seems an obvious place to start. We might look at classroom observation. Be careful if you look to that to give you the answers. It's really hard. One of the things, going back to the Danielson framework, is that there are observations